So today, we are treating the Trojan War as an ancient, long overdue cold case. We've got a crime scene, some destruction, and a few foreign records. We also have some unreliable witnesses and a first investigator who basically bulldozed through the evidence at the first time of asking. Hmm.
I feel so
Uh,
tired today after yesterday. I love
Yesterday we
how
didn't even play that much, honestly.
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't know why I got maybe because I also had yoga in the morning and then I had this and I am not used to so much exercise in one day.
Also
Uh
traveling, and also we played after a very long time, honestly.
yeah, we did. Last week I didn't do anything because I was unwell. So I barely did like I barely got out of the bed only. So it's also getting back to that. But it's also yesterday that I noticed that I didn't realize this before. But when Prakhar, you and I were playing on the same team, and Sandy
Hmm.
and our friend, they were playing on the other team, I realized how seriously they take it. You and I are just fucking about. So it was
Dude, I think that
Oh,
is you. It's not me. That was because of you.
don't be nonsense. When you went to the other side, you were literally making a sumo pose while taking the serve. Okay, so do not tell me that it was me. I
That
was
was
just
for
laughing.
you. That was for you.
Please,
When,
you did that. You did that when you were on my team also, and then we got a point,
yeah.
and you said, "Oh, this works," so I will continue.
See, as long as I got points because of that, it's fine, right?
You did not get points because of that. You literally just got 1 point because of that. Nonsense. But it's really
it's
funny
not
because
called
the
it's
other
not
two
called
guys.
taking it seriously. It's called being 100% committed to what you're doing in that moment. I do that with
Oh, you
everything.
can
Be it
you can
watching a
have
show, be it playing, be it doing my work. I put my 100% of my effort and focus into whatever I'm doing in that moment. What is wrong with that? I don't
nice,
know.
but you can. There's nothing wrong with that. I just said it
Yeah,
was funny. Calm the fuck down.
it's
Like,
not
relax.
okay.
Nobody is attacking you. But it was just funny because you both took it seriously, and the both of us were not taking it seriously. Not that we weren't playing. We were playing. We were just having fun. And well,
It's
I
okay.
I
Both
think
both ways, I think it's fine.
it's
But
fine
that
only.
But that
Yeah.
that line, Sandy, that seemed like a line from a resume, or whatever I do 100%.
No, I mean that's genuinely how I go about everything. Like whatever I'm doing, my 100% of my attention and focus and effort is goes into
Yeah, that is
whatever
true.
it
That is
is.
true. Nobody has challenged that
Yeah.
we know
So,
that,
mm,
but it's not that serious a thing, like this discussion. We are just talking about our demeanors,
okay.
that our demeanors were very, very different.
No, but I think for yesterday, especially because of the rain and the how dirty that coat was, I think especially our other friend and Sandy, they were being. I think they were just being very careful so they
Careful,
don't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they slipped.
Slip.
Especially our other friend, because he slipped twice, by the way, yesterday.
He
Almost
did.
slipped.
Ah.
Almost.
And shoe
Yeah,
also broke.
yeah. Yeah.
After a point, he was
That was
playing
too
with a
funny.
broken shoe.
Yeah, that was too funny.
Yeah, that was just in between. We are playing, and then I looked to my side, and he has one entire sole gone. And then I was like, okay, let's pause. He's like, no, there's another sole inside it underneath the shoe. And that sole is basically just the lining of the shoe. But he did play. He played with that.
And you guys won.
We did win, yes.
Yeah.
Just that one match.
I listened to our favorite podcast. We are here to help after a very long time, and the episode I listened to yesterday, there was this very weird, question this guy had. So this guy was from London, and he wanted to know if his friend's dick is real or not.
Dude, I don't know
Because
why there are so many dick related questions. There was this one episode, I don't know if you remember when I used to watch it. It's been a while, where this guy wanted to see if his twin brother got what is that? What is it?
Circumcision.
Circumcised. Wild, dude. Why? And there was this one guy who was very concerned and very I mean he had a weird complex because this girl he liked, her dog had a big dick.
what?
Yeah, and he was like, maybe the dog has a bigger dick than I do. I was like,
What
it
are
really
people
doesn't matter.
doing?
What if she had a horse friend? What would you do at that time?
Elephant.
Like,
I mean, we've known this for as long as we can remember, as long as human history has been there, that men love comparing dick sizes, and they are very
That is
like
true.
a lot of
That
their
is true.
wild.
ego and pride and a lot of their self-esteem comes from the dick size. And
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
even though it's very funny, that's inherently very true.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Develop a personality, become interesting, do other things.
Yeah, but
What
this
the
is
fuck?
easier. This is significantly easier to do.
This is also this is also not got you have got zero control over this. You can't do anything about it.
Yes. So
Dude,
do other people about whatever other insert any body part there. No. That's how
Oh no, no.
self-esteem works. No.
Men do it specifically. Women, we don't compare. We do talk about our breasts, but in a very different way. Like it's not you have got bigger breasts than mine. It is about fuck my breasts are giving me back pains, and or it's mostly like talking about either issues related to breasts or confirming no, your breasts look great.
That might be
It's
true, but
never
I don't completely agree with what you're saying. That
you don't
might be
have to.
true.
I am a woman. I am telling you the
I
way we
agree.
interact with our friends.
That is true. That's your first-hand account. I'm not denying that. You're absolutely right. I'm also on the internet a lot, right? I see a lot of discussion and conversation about this.
Okay?
There are
Like what?
there's a huge percentage of women who are envious of other people's breasts, and they don't like their own breasts. There is something called as body
Yes,
dysmorphia also,
yes,
right?
yes,
So
that
that is
happens
also
all the time.
that's
But
what
we
I'm
don't,
saying.
yeah, but we don't, it's never a big breast competition. Like that never happens. We never compare
That
sizes.
is fair.
We are
Yeah, I guess.
we do not like because of how we have grown up, we do not like our bodies no matter how we look. That's a big problem, right? Even
Hmm.
people with big women with big breasts, they will also say this something or the other. Like
Yeah, no, fair.
literally some of the most beautiful women you have seen, they will have some problem or the other with their bodies because they've been taught that
hmm
like from childhood.
Hmm.
Very different than comparing dick sizes. And never on the like never ever ever will we have a problem with the size of somebody we know, their breast size. And we do not do that. We have a problem with our own bodies. That's a legitimate problem. I will not deny that.
Okay. Also, I have never been in a situation, or I'm aware of any situation where like men actually compare dick sizes. They might
What
be
do you
doing that, but
mean?
I am not aware of that.
In school, kids used to go to the bathroom to compare
Dear
dicks
God,
with.
I don't
No,
know
no, no,
which
no,
school
no,
you were
no,
in.
no, no,
I've never heard of that.
no. Yeah, I also have never
That
seen
is
this,
I
but I
insane
have.
thing
think
to
I've
say.
heard.
That is an insane thing
I
to
have
say.
heard of that, but I
What?
also might be fully misremembering this. So nobody knows.
I mean, we fully trust the other person is whatever he says. Like our friend, if we ask how big is it, whatever they say, we believe it.
Okay, but
We
you
don't go
guys
to the washroom and
but
compare
you
it.
guys ask, like you
No, I've
ask each
never
other.
done that. Why would you do that? That's just an insane question to ask.
Then how does it come up? How does the conversation come up?
Yeah, I don't ever remember anyone talking about their dick size, at least in my immediate circle or with the people I've
Sorry,
interacted.
you are the one who said that men compare dick sizes. How else do you compare dick sizes? You don't see it, you don't talk about it. How do you
I did
compare
not say
it?
men compare dick sizes. I said men are their entire self-esteem rests on their dick size. There's a difference.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Talking of beautiful women, I want to talk about someone whose face launched 1,000 ships, apparently, right? So, if I were to ask you to name a famous war that might be a total myth, what's the first one that comes to mind? Anyone?
It's
Yeah.
the what the one that King Arthur led, then the
Mm-hmm.
Olympians versus Titans. All of these are myths only, no?
Okay. What about you, Prakhar, if you had to guess?
Pragar is frozen. Oh no, he's blinking.
You know what the funny thing is? I told Prakhar the topic a couple of days ago.
Oh no.
We've spoken about so many things in between. This can be a topic. Like I also mentioned what
No,
topics I can do, but
the other day when we were at a friend's house, the party late night one, our friend asked me what was the next
Mhm.
topic, and I told him in front of you. You were there. So,
Really,
Hilarious.
I don't know. No guesses.
anyway, the thing is, most big wars leave a paper trail, right? You get treaties, tax records, or at the very least, letters from some cranky generals here or there complaining about the quality of food or their bedding arrangements or whatever, right? But
And
when we
even
talk,
physical evidence.
and physical evidence, of course. But when it comes to the Trojan War, we get gods,
Ah,
prophecies, a
I
face that
remember
launched
now.
1,000 ships, a guy with very specific weakness in his heel, and of course, the infamous giant wooden horse, right? It's an incredible story, no doubt. But for a historian, it's basically a nightmare at best. For nearly 3,000 years, we've treated Troy like it's in that blurry spot between history and legend. Ancient Greeks were pretty sure it happened. Romans claimed Trojan refugees as their ancestors. Even medieval kings tried to link their family trees to it. And now, even Hollywood has confirmed its significance by casting Brad Pitt as the legendary Achilles, right? I don't know whether you guys have seen the movie Troy. It
Troy.
came
Yep.
like about 20 odd years ago. It's a
It's
very
so,
old movie
yeah,
now,
it was a child.
right? So, with the new Odyssey movie out now, you would be forgiven for wondering if any of this was actually real, right? I'm not talking about whether Poseidon, who is the ancient Greek god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses, very weird, but it is what it is.
Also horses? I didn't
Also,
know this.
horses. So, I'm not talking about whether Poseidon was actually out there sabotaging ships. We can probably agree he wasn't part of all this chicanery, right? Do you guys know what the story or the plot of the Odyssey
Yeah,
is?
yeah,
So
I'm
just in
not
case
following
someone
this
doesn't
exactly.
know,
Yeah.
so Odyssey is about this guy called Odysseus, right? He is returning from the Trojan War, right? He's returning home from the Trojan War, and it takes him 10 years to sort of get back home. And basically, what all trials and tribulations he went through in those 10 years while returning home is the story of, is the Odyssey, basically. And that is also why, if any person, goes through any trials or tribulations, even now, that word is still sort of used. Like that person has gone through an odyssey, it's an odyssey, stuff like that, right? The real question, however, is, was there an actual war at an actual city that survived for centuries in stories, picking up heroes and monsters along the way? So today, we are treating the Trojan War as an ancient, long overdue cold case. We've got a crime scene, some destruction, and a few foreign records. We also have some unreliable witnesses and a first investigator who basically bulldozed through the evidence at the first time of asking. Which parts of the story do you think are actually in the Iliad? Iliad is the other legendary poem written by Homer, and the Trojan War is supposed to be a part of the Iliad and not the Odyssey. The Odyssey starts after the end of the Iliad. Does that
yeah,
make sense? Right?
yeah.
So, which parts of the Iliad do you think are actually real? The horse, the heel, the city falling, if you had to make a guess.
I'd guess the first thing would be the Trojan horse itself.
Hmm.
I haven't read the Iliad, so I have no idea. But
No, but
I'm
I'm sure
guessing,
you're vaguely aware of the goings on of the Odyssey and the Iliad, right?
yeah, I know the story. So I would assume all of it came from the Iliad, which is that people hid within the horse. It was
Mhm.
a gift. The I don't know what the thousand ships thing is. Uh,
Mhm.
the Achilles heel. The Achilles heel I know from Troy. So I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know, but it is so much a part of like our culture, right?
Yeah,
Like global culture. Like we talk about people's Achilles heel,
yeah.
and I'm assuming we talked about it before seeing Brad Pitt. So I don't know. It does seem like all of this was a part of the real
That's a
story.
part of the lexicon now. So a lot of the
Yeah,
stuff that we use regularly, some of those phrases can be attributed to Homer, not directly, but there were references to such turns of phrases in his work, right?
yeah,
By the way, do you guys know how the Achilles heel thing came about? Like, why was he sort of, why
yeah.
was
That was
that
the only
his
place
weakness?
you. Oh, why it was? I don't remember. But that was the only place you could kill him with, right? You could the
Yes.
only place where you could shoot him where he would
Yeah.
actually die.
The legend goes that as a child, when he was a child, his mother dipped him in the river Styx. So, for those who don't know what the river Styx
Oh,
is, river Styx is the river where people after they die they used to cross the Styx, right? It's the river of the dead in
Mm.
so many words, right?
Mm.
So the legend goes that Achilles' mother dipped him in river Styx, but she was holding on to one of his heels while dipping him in, basically upside down. And the only part which was not dipped, which didn't go underwater, was his heel. That's why that was his only weakness. Otherwise, he was
sorry.
practically immortal.
This is
Can
funny.
you imagine doing that to a child? Like holding the child fucking upside down and plunging him into the river. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to the Iliad. So the question I asked was a trick one. Surprisingly, none of those things are really in there, right? Neither the horse, the heel, or even the city falling, right? And for those who are not aware yet still, Iliad is one of the two major surviving ancient Greek epic poems attributed to Homer. The other one, of course, as you always talked about, is the Odyssey, right?
Mm.
And by the way, the Iliad isn't the whole story. It only covers about 50 days during the 10th year of the siege. So it was a 10-year siege on Troy. Okay. And the Iliad, I think it's about 10 volumes. The entire 10 volumes take place during 50 days in the very final year of the siege on Troy. Right? The horse and everything comes during those 50 days.
I feel
It
like
talk
authors of that generation sort of made things deliberately boring. No need to do this, right?
Yeah, the Iliad talks mostly about Achilles being furious with Agamemnon and ends with a funeral for Hector. Again, this I'm throwing out a lot of names. I'll just keep giving you context. Agamemnon was the king of Greece. If you again going back to the movie Troy, if you remember the king who comes to lay siege on Troy was Agamemnon in that, right? And Hector was the brother of Paris. Paris is the guy who steals Agamemnon's brother's wife, Helen of Troy, right? So there are a lot of moving parts here. And at the end of the poem, Troy is still standing. Achilles is still alive, and there is no sign of a wooden horse anywhere in it, right? The rest of the story comes from other poems that are mostly lost now. We only know them
Mm.
because later writers quoted bits of them, and those bits eventually became the version we've come to know now. And a very important thing to remember is Homer wasn't exactly a war correspondent, right? His poems showed up around the 8th or 7th century BCE, we still don't know for sure. But the war he's talking about supposedly happened in the Bronze Age, several hundred years earlier, right? So there is a gap of several hundred years between the possible event and the surviving epic. It's like trying to learn about the Mughals today, right? Which is increasingly difficult for people these days, but only through songs that were passed down orally for 500 years. You might get the names right, but you might also end up with him fighting a lion, a witch, and a wardrobe, right? So it's
Yeah, yeah,
basically
yeah.
he said, she said, they said. We don't know what actually happened. It's just oral
And
history,
also this,
right?
including this Poseidon in between and
Yeah.
everything, which just makes it, more difficult because that was clearly a myth. Uh, there's no Poseidon. But then what happened? Like, what part
Mhm.
of it was actually real?
So obviously,
Yeah.
Homer took a lot of creative liberties, as poets and authors are supposed to do, and they often do. Otherwise, how will you sell? If you're just reporting the events, you're a journalist. You're
No,
not an author
wait.
anymore, right?
What do you mean? How you will sell? He's writing a poem. A poem is
Yeah,
not supposed to be a historical record. So yeah,
exactly.
that's his
Yeah, it's
job.
a creative endeavor, if anything, right?
Yeah.
So stories like that can keep memories alive, but they also mix things up and change details to keep the audience interested, right? So the first fact is that the Iliad tells us what later Greeks thought about the Bronze Age. It's not a military logbook, right? So if Homer wasn't the best witness that we had hoped for all along, where do we go next? Any thoughts?
But you go to the way we do actual historical, like discoveries,
Hmm.
physical evidence. You dig up things and find if
Exactly.
archaeologically they existed.
Precisely that. So we start looking for the site of the crime, which in this case is the city of Troy. So for ages, people explored northwest Turkey looking for the landscape Homer described in his poems. The best spot seemed to be a place called the Troad, right by the entrance to the Dardanelles. The Dardanelles is a narrow, vital strait in the northwestern Turkey that connects the Aegean Sea with the Sea of Marmara. I don't know how well you remember the map of Turkey or that area of the world, but I'll also show that in a minute.
Yes, please. I don't remember. I just remember, I mean, I remember the broad area, but
Yeah,
of course I don't remember the map.
yeah. So anyway, historically, the Dardanelles was a prime real estate because you could control all the sea traffic going past through that strait. Like it's imagine any any canal of the world today, right? All the straits, the canals,
You want to give a particular reference, Sandy?
sure, the Strait of Hormuz, like the very current relevant strait, right? So all these straits historically and even now have been very important for marine trade. And for the longest time in our planet's history, marine trade was the only way of trade, right? You couldn't walk across continents, you couldn't fly up until like 100 years ago, right? So going by sea was the only way possible. And these straits and these canals, they made marine voyages relatively easier because you could cut through distances. Otherwise, you had to go all around a particular continent, right? It made no sense. So this here is the Strait of Dardanelles. If you see, you have Turkey on the right, you have Greece on the left, and there in between there's a tiny little Sea of Marmara there, and there's the Aegean Sea. Aegean Sea is what separates Greece from Turkey, right? So between the Sea of Marmara and the Aegean Sea is what you have the Dardanelles Strait here. So the thing is, the site we now call Troy is actually a mound called Hisarlık. It's got about 4,000 years of history packed into it. But the best part about all of this is that Troy wasn't just one single city. If you had to hazard a guess what it could have been, what would your best guess be?
You know what? I haven't watched Troy. I haven't watched 300. I haven't watched any of these movies. So I'm completely like
No
I'm just
context whatsoever.
yeah. No, well, this all of this is interesting because history in general I like
Hmm.
listening to it, but I can't relate to the names or the movie or the characters. So
Ah, unfortunate. Well,
Fair.
you should
Hmm.
watch Troy though. Troy is a
yeah,
The
very, very
movie
good
I
is
movie.
really, really good. It's
Yeah,
actually a
very good.
really
I've
good movie. Yeah.
yeah, I've written it on my list.
uh, uh, what is it? Is it like a cluster of is tell me it's not like the lost city of Atlantis.
No, not in so many words. So
Okay.
basically, what Troy was a whole stack of cities, one on top of another. It's not a cluster of cities. It's layer upon layer upon layer of cities. All together, it's what we known as, is now known as Troy, right?
So it's Discworld? Do you know
I
Discworld?
guess. I mean, I'm vaguely aware of the concept, but I guess maybe Terry
What
Pratchett took
nonsense.
inspiration from Troy. You never know, right? So what would happen was people would build, get knocked down by an earthquake or a fire, and then just build right on top of it again, right? Archaeologists call these layers Troy 1 through Troy 9. So basically, there are
Oh,
nine different layers, nine distinct layers, which are then also subdivided into other different layers, right?
poor guys, man. Life used to be so difficult.
Yeah. So when someone asks you if Troy was destroyed or how it was destroyed, the first question you need to ask is which one are you talking about, right? So there was never one single Troy.
The war, the Trojan War,
Mhm.
was that Troy 9?
No, I'll also get to that in a bit.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, and before we dig any deeper, because we're talking about Troy here, let's take a quick break. Hopefully, we'll come back with our defenses in better shape than Troy's, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back. Okay, how many times do you think it was rebuilt though? There's no perfect answer here, but the point is it happened a whole lot of times, right? The layers that fit Homer's timeline are Troy 6 and Troy 7a. So Troy 7 is further bifurcated into like A, B, C, D. I think they go on till E, if I'm not mistaken. There are
Jesus
five
Christ.
layers in Troy 7 itself, right?
What
So
is happening? Were they
There
naming like
to,
is,
classes and sections?
but this is historians naming, right? How else
yeah,
will you
yeah.
name it?
So this is just an illustrative reference of how Troy might have been. Can you see all the different layers?
Yeah.
This is what the Homeric Ilios. Ilios was the ancient name of Troy, right? So this is where also the term Iliad also comes from, right?
Hmm.
So Homeric Ilios on the right, you see that is what they imagine it would have looked like. But if you
Hmm.
see, you have Troy 2 between 2500 and 2400 BC, Troy 3 between 2400 and 2100 BC, and so on and so forth. So there are
Sorry,
nine
how do
distinct
we know?
layers.
How
Yeah.
do we know that these are 9 distinct ones? What if it was like an earthquake came in one part of Troy, that part was destroyed, and that was rebuilt, but
Mhm.
the rest of Troy was it remained. How do we know that it is? Because
They
when you do
might.
archaeological digs, I don't
Mhm.
imagine it must be actually layer after like it's difficult to preserve like that, right? So
Yeah.
how do we know this?
I'll also be getting to that. All very relevant
Okay.
questions, very important questions, right?
So
So
they built on top of like the previous one because the area was such that they didn't want to move away from this area, or what was it like?
I think at that time it's difficult to move. Even
also,
today,
yeah.
man. Like when there's an earthquake and like the Gujarat earthquake happened, right? Half of the city was destroyed. You rebuild your city. You don't just
Hmm.
abandon and leave.
Also
No,
that also with
they had an
yeah.
option, I guess.
Also we're talking about the Bronze Ages. There were no means of
Yeah.
mass migration then, right? You couldn't
Yeah.
just uproot an entire city and move somewhere else. It was extremely difficult for people to do that. Even now it is very difficult.
No, but
Imagine in the Bronze Ages, right?
wasn't migration like the natural way back then? People used to migrate for food, for water, and maybe let's say this area had like a
Mhm.
river or a fertile land, so
Exactly.
they decided to stay
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, you only
Also,
migrated out of deep survival necessity because
yeah.
you have reached a place where you are able to get food and water, but you don't know what lies. There's no map. There is no
Yeah, yeah.
way of
Yeah.
communicating with people who have left. So,
Fair, fair, fair.
Also, remember that this was right on the cusp of, it was basically a huge water body, right? So you have a lot of
Hmm.
fishing could take place. You have readily available water. So naturally, because closer to the sea, you have extremely fertile land over there. So there are a lot of contributing factors also to that, right? This paints a very beautiful picture of what Troy was, right? So you see all the nine distinct layers here, all the various names here, the Ilios, Ilion, Ilium, Truva, throughout the ages, right?
Why is Troy 6 white?
So the
okay.
why Troy 6 is in white is because that is the one on the right, the blown up image is of Troy 6. That is the Homeric Ilios, right?
It's a Prakar, it's not just white. It's if you can see, it's sort of like that spotlight thing happening.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
opening
yeah.
up.
So the figure on the right, the bigger image on the right is what the white
Ah,
part is,
okay.
right?
Ah, okay, 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 okay.
So this is what they suspect Homer was talking about in the Iliad as the Troy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So Troy 6 was a very serious city with massive, massive stone walls, right? It wasn't some tiny village. It was a wealthy, fortified place that existed right when a war could have happened. But Troy 6 ended because of an earthquake and not a war or any other form of man made destruction. Right? The people stayed though and rebuilt on top of it. So that is the first sort of theory put forth by Homer, which has been proven wrong. Right? So historians and archaeologists they dug through and they found out that Troy 6, which was exactly the period being referred to by Homer, was not destroyed because of some invasion or some siege. It was destroyed by natural forces, by an earthquake, right? The next version, Troy 7A, used the same walls but got way more crowded. Basically, more people sort of migrated into the city.
Or were
They
born.
or were born. They even built storage jars right into the floors. Some people think they were prepping for a siege, right? That's what people would do. Like they would create hoards. You would hoard on a lot of food and water and grains and stuff so that if there is a, for example, a 10-year long siege, you would have enough resources to sustain the city, right?
Were
Others,
sieges common in the Bronze Age?
yes, 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 they were.
Yeah.
Also, this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was also the time when the Greek civilization was at the peak of its powers, right? So they used to go all around and basically acquire land,
Yeah.
right? Others think it was just a housing crisis. Either way, Troy 7A was destroyed around 1200 BC, and this time it looks like a fire and a fight. So, archaeologists basically found arrowheads and some remains, which suggests violence in Troy 7A. But it doesn't prove it was Agamemnon and his huge army, though, right? And therein lies the main hurdle. We have a real city and a real destruction. But for all intents and purposes, there was no bronze sign saying Achilles was here, right? There is basically nothing to prove. There is no evidence indicating to the presence of this massive Greek force, this presence of Agamemnon, Achilles, or this 10-year long siege.
I mean, Achilles was very clearly a myth, right?
Yes, but I mean, the Achilles is one of those figures who is basically on the fence between being a myth and an actual historical figure. So I don't think,
There might be a warrior, but there was no Achilles.
yes.
Achilles, a person who could be killed only by through his heel,
Yeah,
does
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
exist, has never existed. So yeah, that's
But we
fine.
don't know for sure whether there was an actual person called Achilles who had these legendary sort of tales around him. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we can't talk about the search for Troy without mentioning Heinrich Schliemann.
Who's
Heinrich
that?
Schliemann was a wealthy businessman who was absolutely obsessed with proving Homer right. Right? Schliemann Schliemann was smart and driven, but he was also a bit of a self-aggrandizing opportunist, right?
Oh no, are you telling me a wealthy businessman was narcissistic? Ah, fuck.
Not my
Who would have
words,
thunk? Who would
right?
have thunk? Yeah.
He wasn't even the first to find the site, right? It was a guy named Frank Calvert who actually pointed him to the right hill and where to dig. And also, just so that we are aware, Frank Calvert, if I'm not mistaken, was this from some British elite society who owned that part of the world. And he was the guy who told Heinrich Schliemann to basically, "Ki, why don't you dig here and take a look?" That's why, right? In 1870, Schliemann started digging, but he basically had the subtlety of a sledgehammer, right? He was so sure the real Troy was at the very bottom that he dug a massive trench right through the layers we now think are the most important, right? So basically, he kept on digging through the Hisarlık. I think that was the name of the uh,
Wait,
uh,
what the fuck? This is, I
right.
mean, a mine sort of digging at an archaeological site where they
Yes,
literally go with like brushes and spoons.
yes, yes. He
Oh
he
no!
started digging in one place and just dug right through as deep as he could,
Oh no! What the
thinking that the
fuck?
real Troy described by Homer was like way the fuck deep, right?
Okay, but how would he get to know if he dug like
Yes,
that?
he was
Just
also not an
jackass.
archaeologist. He was a fucking wealthy businessman. He was not supposed to dig.
Oh
If
God.
anything, he was supposed to enlist an archaeologist saying that why don't you dig here? Because you know
Oh
so much better
God.
than I do.
Ashmita is losing
But this
it.
is, yeah, this is destruction of history, dude. It's destruction of
Yes.
historical evidence. You cannot do this. But also completely in line with the confidence of wealthy businessmen. Like I have
Yeah.
never met a, a wealthy business person, a startup owner, all these tech megalomaniacs, like all of these guys who don't think that they can just do shit without knowing anything about it. It's wild.
This is
Right.
the first
Fuck.
time I'm hearing this from Ashmita.
I
Yeah.
am just emphasizing that my point gets proven back to the fucking Bronze Age, okay?
Yeah.
Like it's wild.
No, but this guy, Schliemann was in the 19th century. This was like 1870s we're talking about,
Okay,
right?
okay, then 3 centuries prior.
Right? What Schliemann also did was he found a stash of gold and called it Priam's treasure. For those who don't know who Priam was, Priam
She
in
was
Greek
my
mythology,
friend.
yes, but also in Greek mythology, Priam was the legendary and last king of Troy during the actual Trojan War. Again, going back to the movie Troy, since you know the reference, Ashmita, he was Hector and Paris's father, the old king, right?
Just want to interject a little. Ashmita, do you really remember the names? Do you
I
really
don't remember the
remember?
names, of course not. But I
But you remember the
remember
characters, right? Like the
Ah,
exactly.
okay,
So
okay.
if you point that out to me, then I know who you are talking about. It's
right?
the same as Troy. I watched like a decade and a half back or something like
Yeah,
that. You have to do that with people I know today.
yeah, fair,
Fine,
right?
fine.
So basically, Schliemann, what he did was not only did he find this so-called Priam's treasure, he also took a lot of that Priam's treasure, which later turned out to be basically remnants of the Ottoman Empire. Which, if you remember,
Oh,
we're talking about modern Turkey here. Ottoman Empire
yeah,
was basically modern Turkey, right? So it was of great cultural value to the people there, understandably so, right? And
yeah.
understandably, they were extremely pissed at Schliemann. Like, how the fuck can you take this away from us, right? Anyway, all of this, it
Never
was a,
before or never after has it happened in
yeah,
history.
yeah. So all of this, it was a great story, but the treasure was actually from a city 1,000 years older than the war. The war, again, the war in question is the Trojan War, right? Since then, archaeology has gotten a lot more careful. Of course, that's how it's supposed to be. People like Manfred Korfmann for no one knows who Manfred Kaufmann is. He was a German archaeologist. He excavated Hisarlık, the present site of Troy, situated in modern day Turkey. Right? He was the actual archaeologist who conducted the dig thereafter. So his dig has shown that Troy was a big, important trade hub. That is
Dude,
also
I'm so
another reason.
sorry.
What?
I'm sorry. I keep hearing dick instead of dig. And
I mean that's your problem, bro.
Yeah,
no,
Prakhar,
he
what
said,
the
he
fuck?
said, Sandy said, no, his dig revealed. What was the last line
Yeah,
he
but
said?
he spoke about archaeological digs for so long. What the
Archaeological
fuck?
dicks.
Oh God.
I'm sure he must have found that also, but
I'm
this
sure
is
he
the
did not. I am
yeah,
absolutely sure he did not.
yeah, yeah. So talking about the archaeological digs, the what when he excavated all these things, the various layers, it proved time and time again that Troy was also a big important trade hub. Another reason why people didn't move away from there, right? It was a very prosperous city also at times, right? A lot of the thoroughfare was through Troy, of all the merchants, the goods traveling, and all of that, right? Even so,
Sorry,
the
when we spoke about earlier, then I was mistaken. When we spoke about migration earlier, Prakhar was right. At this point of time, migration had become pretty, like, pretty, you know, pertinent. Like it was commonplace. It was
Mhm,
sort of ubiquitous at this point of time. So there was a very big possibility of moving. There was messaging each other. I mean, sending messages to each other was possible, of course, through people.
mhm,
Uh, so all of that was happening. What must have been difficult would have been the early Bronze Age.
mhm.
No?
Yes, also, we're talking about mass migration. Even during those days, the only people who could afford ships were people with insanely deep pockets, right? They were trade merchants, they were kings, royalties who could afford these massive ships. We're talking about, I don't know how many people there are, but if I had to speculate, like 10,000 people. You can't ensure that 10,000 people migrate in one go, right? That's just, it's honestly very difficult even in today's time and age, let alone during that time, right?
I mean, uh, announce a lockdown in 4 hours. Expect
Yeah.
the labor to go back to their homes,
Yeah.
people who do manual labor and by foot. And
Yeah.
some will die in between, but
Even so, even after all of this, the debate still remains a bit heated. You don't need an army to start a fight over Troy. Just put a few professors in a room together and they will do the arguing for on everyone's behalf anyway. But luckily, the Greeks weren't the only ones keeping records, right? By any chance, has either one of you heard of Wilusa or Ahiava?
no.
Nope.
So the we're talking about the Hittite Empire here. The Hittite Empire was a major Bronze Age civilization centered in Anatolia, which is basically modern day Turkey again, right?
Yeah.
That flourished from the 17th to the 13th century BC. They lived nearby and they kept clay tablets as records. That was their way of keeping records of the goings on, right? They mention a place called Wilusa, which sounds a lot like the Greek name for Troy or Ilios. So historians believe that Ilios was derived from Wilusa, right? They also talk about a power called Ahiava, which most people link to the Greeks. If I'm not mistaken, the Ahiava was their term for sea people or seafarers, right? And because the Greeks used to travel in these massive, I think they were called triremes, and there were these massive warships, right? So Greek soldiers used to travel in these massive triremes. So they came to be known as the Ahiavas by the Hittite Empire people, right? They even have record of a letter about a dispute over Wilusa involving those two powers. It doesn't mention a 10-year siege or even a wooden horse, but it shows that Troy was definitely a flashpoint for conflict time and time again. There is even a king mentioned named Alaksandu. which is remarkably close to Alexander, the other name for Paris, the son of Priam. Again, to reiterate, Paris, historically, even in legends, was the guy who went and stole the Greek king's brother's wife, Helen, who later came to be known
Kidnapped,
as the Helen
kidnapped.
of Troy. Yeah, kidnapped. Yes, you're right. Kidnapped. So the likely
But
reality,
also there were so many Alexanders.
Alexander was also a very common name, like
Yeah.
during that time, right?
Yeah, amongst conquerors also. So
Yes,
do they know for sure this is the
that
Alexander?
is what the historian's theory is, right? That is
Okay.
what they discovered on the clay tablets maintained by the
Ah, okay.
Hittite Empire people. Right. So in this case, Alexandru that they discovered, they think they very strongly believe that it's remarkably close to the real name or the other name of Paris. Paris is played by Orlando Bloom in the movie Troy, right? So he's the
What
younger
if,
son.
Sandy, it was a case like yours, like your actual name is something else, and they were calling Alexander Alexandru.
I mean, possible. It's quite possible.
Cute nickname.
Also, I don't know if you know, like in Indian historical records, the name for Alexander the Great was Alexandra. That's how they used to call him. They never used to call him Alexander. They used to call him Alexandra.
Of course, it is the Hindi
Right?
version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically. The likely reality is that Troy was a real place that got caught in the middle of repeated Bronze Age power struggles. Right? Over time, those memories probably got squashed together into one epic story, which we now know as the Iliad. That's the likeliest theory, right?
Hmm.
Now it's time for one last break. The Greeks waited 10 years. You only have to wait about maybe a minute or so. I think we'll be right back.
Not even that. Hmm.
All right, welcome back. On one hand, Troy was definitely real. There is no doubt about it. That the city of Troy actually existed. It was fortified and it was destroyed time and time again. The Hittite records back up the idea that there was tension between the Greeks and the Trojans. On the other hand, we can't prove the one big war theory, right? We don't have a roster of heroes, and the numbers Homer gives, like over 1,000 ships sailed from Greece towards Troy, are probably just epic exaggerations to for dramatic effect in his creative work, right? So you might wonder now, if the war was smaller, was Homer actually lying? I would
He was
argue not.
narrating a story.
Exactly. I would argue not really, right? His job was to tell a story about human emotion, honor, and grief. The history gives it weight, but the actual truth of the poem is about how people deal with war, not about keeping a perfect diary or record, right? In the end, Troy is a lesson in how much we want legends to be true. Schliemann found the site because he believed the myth, but he also ruined significant amounts of evidence in the
Yeah.
process, right? Because he tried to basically brute force his way to the facts to fit the plot. The real answer isn't a simple yes or no, it's somewhere in the middle. Where the city is real, the wars are likely, but the heroes and the wooden horse are still just a bit too far out of reach. The case is still open, and honestly, that's a way more interesting than a clean answer of yes or no, right? I mean, even without knowing the actual historical facts, the wooden horse might have been true even if you didn't know the actual story,
I really want the wooden horse to be true too.
right? But there
It's
is no
really
historical
amazing.
evidence of that, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
but in terms of actual narration storytelling, that's a brilliant piece of storytelling. Like props to
Yeah.
Homer, bro. Props, actual
Yeah.
props.
He did his job, I think. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not his fault that everybody took a poem and was like, this must have happened. That's not on him.
Yeah, yeah.
But also all this murkiness about whether something happened, did not happen, that is true for even very well recorded histories, dude. Like Subhash Chandra Bose is one very, very big example where he was alive during the 20th century. There is
Yeah,
no reason why we should not have had proper records of what he did, where he went, like all of that. There's no reason. There was radio at that point of time. Like we
yeah,
were
yeah.
communicating, live. But
Hmm.
we still don't know a bunch of things. It's still shrouded in so much
Yeah,
murkiness, right? Mystery. And that's true for all kinds of history. You will find
yeah.
that depending on who tells the story, you will find that all the time. Like all the fucking time.
And yeah, and this we are referring to the Bronze Age, right? So
Yeah.
all the more reason for there to be ambiguity about whatever evidence we have or don't have, right?
Yeah. So
So
many language changes have happened after
yeah,
that.
yeah,
That makes it so difficult. Like even if you find physical evidence, translating that evidence to what we know today, that's an
yeah,
insane amount of work. And you can never be sure of that.
yeah. And also now that we know for a fact, it's been established that there are like 9 different cities in one single place, right? So it also takes time to parse through all whatever evidence there is and to assign it to a particular Troy number, right? That also is a insane amount of work. You find a clay pot, you have to figure out which Troy it belonged to, right?
Sorry, I
So
missed this. Did I miss this part? Did you answer my question on how they know it was, how exactly they know it was layer after
yes,
layer after layer?
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
was that? I
So
forgot. Huh.
for the Troys where they think, so especially the Troy that Homer was referring to, which was Troy 6 and Troy 7a. Troy 6, they very strongly believe was destroyed by natural causes because uh, there were no actual arrowheads or any weapons found, right? So it was, and they found some evidence of an actual earthquake is what might have destroyed Troy 6. Whereas Troy 7a, which was built on top of that, they found evidence that they had built massive storage pits and containers into the ground, as if they were storing ration to prepare for a siege, right? You need to sustain an entire city during a
Okay.
siege taking place, right? And also they found some mortal remains with uh, injuries caused by weapons, and they also found
Okay.
some arrowheads and stuff. So that's how they established that Troy 7a was destroyed by a siege, but they are not convinced that it was this massive epic siege. It must have been one of the many sieges that took place over the years. So there is no way to prove that it was this massive 10-year siege and that 1,000 ships sailed, and there is not even a single piece of wood which might have looked like it belonged to a massive wooden horse. So and even the Hittite records don't recall anything of that sort. They were actually keeping records of what was taking place right next to them, right?
To be fair,
So
Homer never claimed that it's a true story. He just, again,
yeah,
just wrote a
also
fucking poem.
yes, Homer existed like several centuries after
Yeah.
the actual war took place, whatever war took place, right? The Trojan War that we come to know now as took place. So Homer was basically he was basically chilling and writing a story about something he heard about, maybe through his parents or through his grandparents
No,
or from some
it's the
neighbor
same
or
thing
whatever.
as
Yeah.
let's say 1,000 years later, somebody finds a copy of fucking I don't know, lot of the what is it? Lord of the Rings, and
Hmm.
says that Middle Earth was real.
Yeah.
No, it's a fictional story. So it is
Yeah.
not on Tolkien if some of us decide to do that.
Exactly.
Uh, Fiction
Yeah.
writers, that's their
Yeah.
job, and they did it really well.
Yeah. So the entire point of this episode was to once and for all put the theory to rest that the Trojan War was real. There is still no evidence to prove it was real. There might have been a war between the Greeks and Trojans, but there was no massive Trojan horse, there was no 10-year siege, there were no 1,000 ships. And as far as we know, there was still no Achilles, right? There might have been a guy called Achilles who fought really well, but there was no immortal guy called Achilles who was only weak with his heel, So all of that is
Okay, that if anybody believes that that was actually the case, uh, they deserve to continue believing that.
right.
Yeah. Prakhar,
Anything?
I want
Uh,
to know your thoughts because this was a completely new story to you, and it's a super interesting series of stories. Like it's really really fun. This part of fiction, but based on, of course, historical events. So, what do you think?
I liked it. I actually want to make a list of the movies I should watch, because I think I've mentioned this to you guys before also. I wasn't into fiction a lot. I used to, even for books, my interest would has always been into the self help side, right? But
Yeah,
now now I've
also
started
called
shifting
scam.
towards, yes, that. So now I started shifting towards fiction. So I think I should also explore these movies. I haven't seen it. It is actually very interesting because I like history. So and period drama is also something I enjoy. So can be interesting. Let me just watch these movies, and I'll see if I can relate to the sections that we've talked about.
You can also read like lighter sort of, well, not lighter than Homer for sure. More
Homer, no
modern
one would be able to
language.
understand in today's day and age. So that is,
No,
I
people
think,
still read. Like,
they read,
I
but
don't read classics because I find them mind-numbingly boring. Like, I just cannot get through classics. And
But
then
why are
the
they?
modern classics were very, very sexist, so I did not read them. For example, like, I mean, people just to serve with love, right? I remember when I was a child, when I read that book, I was like, it's a good book. And then when I read it as an adult, I was horrified that an adult man would keep talking about his teenage students' breasts. And the whole book is full of that. It's horrifying. But
What?
anyway, so classics I'm not a fan of. I get bored or I get disturbed, and not in the way I enjoy getting disturbed. Like I like disturbing things, but not like this. But anyway, there are more contemporary sort of writings that are books that are really good, that talk about these stories in a more contemporarized way, like modern way. One of them is Circe, Circe. It's a big read. It's a very long book, but very good. It's again mythological, right? It's based on the time period of Odyssey only. Uh,
Mm.
but it is, instead of the journey, it is about the people left behind. So it's a very interesting read. So you can read of those also. They are also, it's a more modern writing, language that is interesting. You don't have to pause at every word wondering what the fuck is going on, dude. But also completely depicts all these stories in different lights from different angles. Super interesting.
Got it, got it. I'll start with watching the Troy 300 and all these
Yeah,
movies
so
first.
far easier than reading Circe.
Yeah.
Circe is a gigantic book.
I could have made my recommendation Troy, but I just imagine that everyone would have seen Troy
Everybody
by
has watched
now.
it, except Prakhar. Every single person has watched it.
I think Netflix or any OTT platform is just waiting for me to watch, and then they'll
Yeah, then
remove
they will
it from
remove
their
it.
platform.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
one user left.
Yeah, but a side recommendation, Troy definitely. It's a very, very well-made movie. It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
So it's very good. Anyway, my recommendation of the week.
Recommendation time.
It is this channel. It's basically a multimedia web portal, but I follow it on YouTube. It's this channel called Big Think, right? It's a web portal
Mhm.
founded in 2007 that publishes interviews and roundtable discussions with experts from a very wide range of fields, right? I love watching the channel from time to time because there is so much stuff out there that I still don't know. And that is an excellent source of information because it features almost always the foremost experts from all sorts of backgrounds, right? So criminologists, scientists, astrophysicists, all of these like really, 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 really intelligent people who are doing a lot of very interesting stuff. They talk about a lot of interesting stuff, and
Oh,
I
this
just
is the
enjoy
one
watching.
where people ask questions in tweets and they respond?
No. That's Lad Bible. That's a different one.
Oh.
But also that's Wired. Wired is completely different. The
Okay.
yeah. This
Okay.
is similar to that, but it's more of like a. I don't know if you've ever seen they usually make people sit and there's this massive white drape behind, and there's just one single chair and people sit in between that and they talk.
Oh, yes, I mean, while you were watching, I've seen some
Yeah. So
interesting
I love watching the
conversations.
big thing. It's almost always very informative stuff, right? And you don't have any crazy people there talking about unscientific things which make no sense. So yeah,
AKA no right wingers.
if you're someone who loves learning, then this is the channel for you. I highly recommend that. Please do
Sandy
check them
ignored
out.
me.
Yes. Yeah, so it's called Big Think, not Big Thing. That's a completely different thing. Big Think with a K. Okay. Right. For that was for Prakhar because
Yeah.
he just he's constantly thinking and
Optics today.
yes.
Constantly.
Yeah, and that brings me to the end of my episode. And before we sign off for today, please do like, share, subscribe wherever you can find us. We are at the rate DKDC podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Please reach out to us in the comments there, or feel free to write to us at don'tknowdocare1@gmail.com. I'm sure I must have gotten something wrong over the course of this episode. Please let me know what I did wrong, or if there's some more interesting stuff that you think we could explore in the upcoming episodes. We'd be more than happy to take them up. Uh, yeah, please do that. Please give us some rating if you can on the podcast platform of your choice. We'd be very grateful if you did that. Please share it with your friends and some select family members who are cool enough if you think. So yeah,
Bold of you to think that we cool people would want to listen to us, but sure.
yeah, yes. Anyway, yeah, and that's the end of our episode. And with that, we'll sign off for now. Up until next time, take care. Bye bye.